Hi, everybody. This is Heather Lockett with Lasting Conversations, and I am tickled and overjoyed to be joined with Beth Brown-Rinella. Hey, Beth.
Hey, so happy to be here.
So, as we know, this show is very, very organic. Things come and go. People are scheduled, or sometimes it's just me. And it was yesterday that I got this, reach out to Beth. And Beth is in Naples, Florida. And she hopped in and said, yes, 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 and thank you. So welcome, Beth. And she is a high priestess, an oracle, a master channel, the owner of a wonderful shop called Goddess I Am. It is a healing and meditation center in Naples, Florida. So we're going to traipse the light fantastic. We're going to bring in some high womanly priestess goddess energy, which is great for all of man and womankind. And so again, welcome back.
Thank you so much. How sweet that was.
Lovely. So you are, first and foremost, I consider you a teacher. You're very grounded in the things that you know and that you bring forward that can get very woo and very past life and future and Egyptian codes and all of these wild things. But you are this centered, grounded woman in her power. And that's where I have appreciated your help at times. And I think that you can help all of us as we are in kind of a tumultuous time on the planet.
This is true.
So talk to us about what it might mean to be a priestess or an oracle, and certainly a channel. I think a lot of people would understand what channeling is.
Okay. So as far as priestessing, we are seeing that many, many thousands of women have felt this call, this pull to the divine feminine in some way. It may be that they're drawn to reading about the divine feminine, or they're drawn to goddesses, or they're drawn to Mary Magdalene, and other women in the Bible, if they have that kind of background. But being a priestess is really answering the call that says, are you ready to embody the truth of who you are? And when you're ready to embody that, it becomes, well, how much do I have to let go of in order to be just me? Right? How much of the programming I've learned as a child, how much of my family's belief systems that maybe don't really register with me or resonate with me, do I ignore and adopt new ones? So when you do priestess work, it really becomes an effort to embody that part of yourself that is pure love, and then try to navigate life while you're trying to be love. And that's where it gets a little bit difficult at times, and where it gets actually really fun at times, because you can stand in observation of people and their stuff, whatever's going on, and you could just be like, okay, look at them. And there's no judgment. There's no anticipatory energies of how what the outcome will be. It's just, you get to just kind of be in observance, because no longer are you in the churning machine of 3D trying to, give everything a box that it has to fit in. It's a good or it's bad. It's black, it's white, it's up, it's down. And then you just allow everything to be what it is. Just joyfully, like, oh, look at them fighting over there. It's like, okay, they must have something they've got to work out. But you don't get embroiled. There's no more drama. There's no more, it's like you just become allergic in a way to drama and just stuff that's gossipy and low vibrational, because none of that is love.
That's so very true. And I think that this is so different than, and I've mentioned this a few times on the show with the various guests, that's different than, say, putting on the Om Shanti Bliss Band-Aid. This gets into when we're at our core selves and we know and we can be more comfortable and we are less allergic to life all around us and therefore less reactionary. That's where being to observe that there are things happening and people can be in actual pain. Somebody will have died, or maybe somebody's going through something, but how to then be able to navigate it with some beautiful mentors or your team, but you don't have to have the same freak out as we have all been essentially taught that, well, why aren't you upset? And why aren't you mad? Or why don't you hate them? And all the them and the them. So it comes back to that center of our soul-centered self, makes traversing the waves and the roller coasters. Both of us have had marriages and divorces. We've raised children. We've had moves. We've had people kick us in the ass or break our hearts, things that take us by surprise. And you go, wait, what? And how to navigate all of these things with the best graces we can. But again, without that disconnected bliss Band-Aid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I have a real issue with I call them the Love and Light Brigade.
Okay.
And these are the people that have inadvertently, or I think wrongly, decided that being spiritual means that they're just going to focus on love and light. They're going to ignore the hardships of life. They're going to just pour like this syrupy, honeyed system over everything in their life. And really all that is it's just bypassing. It's not engaging. I mean, we are here to be fully engaged with our emotions. And the thing about being a priestess is we realize that there's no good and bad emotions. There's just emotions. So when you're doing things that bring up emotions, like if someone does die, of course you're going to be sad. You're going to feel that, but we're not going to be like, oh, but that's not love and light, so I better not be sad. It's like, no, you are here to enter into the fullness of life. And think how shallow would we be if everything was just, oh, it's all good, it's perfect, it's fine. Sometimes the best conversations are when we're talking about the dark stuff that's going on inside of us, because other people have the same darkness to some extent. And so now we're really getting to something that actually matters, you know? So I feel like we're at a place where when we can learn to be the observer, like, oh, look at these people in my family fighting it out in the old dynamic we used to have when we were children. But you know what? I'm going to stand back and I'm going to observe. This is my observation position. Standing back and I'm like watching. I'm not watching with judgment in my heart. I'm watching like, look how they're navigating with each other. This one's not listening at all. And this one is so hurt by what's been said in the past that they're just fighting for their own anger. Right. But they're not solving anything. So this is 100% what I want to avoid at all costs, especially if there's no positive outcome. If there's
yes, of course. And where I was also thinking is most of everything starts within us anyway. So, look at me having this reaction. What is this bringing up? So talk to us about and you have many clients and people that come to your classes and such, the work starts from within. And so how to then observe ourselves before it even starts with anybody else.
And I think this is why when we become a really good monitor of our feelings and our emotions, then we start to know, like if someone, you want to upset me, you just come at me condescendingly. And that is a trigger for me that it's like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to rumble because I will fight you for my intelligence. And yet, will I now do that? In the past, that's how I would have been. But when you feel triggered, when you feel that instant something rise up that you almost are like, I can't stop from speaking my angry words to you, that's when you go, wait a sec, wow, look at me. Whew.
Yeah, take that beat, take a pause.
Exactly. And that's part of being mature in your spiritual growth is when you know that you can take a pause. Like if someone says to me, well, just because you think you know everything, in the past, I might have been, well, who do you think you are? Kind of a thing. It would have been that kind of fight, right? But now I'll just be like, oh, okay. And I won't have a comment. Because now I'm going to start observing not only how they're coming at me, but I'm going to observe how I'm feeling. Right now I'm feeling triggered and I'm like, but I know I'm not really stupid. So their condescension doesn't really, it's hitting a wall with me. I'm not going to let it get in and trigger me beyond the initial, did you just condescend me? What?
Right.
And
Right.
then I'm so comfy with me now to where if you want to try to limit me, if you want to try to put me down, if you want to try to have an observation of me that's negative, okay.
And that's just it. And you just said that beautifully, is that when you know yourself, so you know yourself, as we know ourselves more, then we can actually discern, well, maybe somebody's projection and has nothing to do with any of us. Exactly. Or somebody, and then the twist of gaslighting. Ooh, I came from all kinds of that kind of crazy town. So people, if you've been marinated in certain things that you don't even know, you have to break free, basically. And this gets into a lot of the work that you have, is to remember so much. And for people who have grown up in nothing but darkness or suicidal tendencies, all these different things, that, oh, wait a second, there's a whole nother way. And we get to observe. And then here's the thing. And we talked about the standing at the edge of the mystery, and I'll say the mastery, with our gentleman Morgan the other day, having to do with the second, especially in family or relational dynamics. As we know ourselves and rise up and don't put up with all of that projection and somebody else's anger coming toward us, that's when it pokes the bear, and other people don't like it. They don't like you. And I keep going back to, because we were mentioning priestesses and stuff and the Salem witch trials. And I grew up in Massachusetts. So all of that stuff where we can feel afraid to step into our authentic power and voice what we need to in love, and then literally not say when it's about to re-engage with people who are used to fighting. Yeah. That can feel triggery for the other folks because they don't know what to do with you. That's right. In that safe space. So talk to us about some of these realms, because that's where, in standing at the edge of that, where do I want to continue to engage because otherwise they won't like me anymore, or worse. We know abusive relationships, the physical abuse can get worse before it can get better. So it can get very nuanced, but this is where it's very important right now. And it always has been, I think, but now is the time of the powerful, of the stepping forward for all of our generations to know thyself. Yeah. And that's where the authenticity comes through. And other people want to play and dance with you. That's the fun part, is that you just find your tribe to dance and have fun.
Well, I'll tell you something that's funny about this, is that many of us in either the spiritual world or the priestessing world, we often find that we are the black sheep in our family. Yep. We are the generational breakers. We break the generational curses. We break the generational for BS, for a lack of a better way of putting it. Right. We are often the ones that kind of pull our heads up out of the tar pit that the rest of the family is still living in. And we say, wait a sec, I don't want to live in this tar pit. Y'all are dirty, right? We're dirty. We're covered in tar all the time. And so I'm going to climb out of the tar pit. And as soon as I climb out of the tar pit, everybody in the tar pit starts going, well, wait a sec. Look at it. She's clean. You went to the river. You got cleaned. You're wearing all white. It's like, oh, look at me. I feel so good. I'm not.
You're all shiny.
Bright and shiny.
You're all bright and shiny.
And pretty soon others. So one of two reactions are going to happen. They're either going to start climbing out and try to figure out what you learned.
Right.
Or they're going to look at you as you are truly odd man out. And that's okay, because one of the things that we learn in understanding ourselves is I am the only thing I need. I'm the only healer I need. I'm the only lover I need. I'm the only doctor I need. I'm the only psychologist I need. I'm the only friend I need. And yet we'd like to assign these roles to all these other people. But really, in the end, it comes down to you. How are you navigating you? So when I navigate myself in a way where I can love accept who I am. And I am full of faults. I am full of things that others would judge me for. It's like, I'm okay with that, because I can look at myself and say, I'm laughing because I know I'm messy. But that doesn't change the fact that I'm messy, but that would irritate others. But I'm not bothered that it irritates them, because I can't be in charge of whatever everybody else is feeling and thinking. I'm only in charge of what I'm feeling and thinking. But I will tell you, I live by this one axiom, which is, if it's not mine directly, it's not mine. So I don't need to stick my nose into other people's business if it's not my business. Right? So when we think about it, if it's not mine directly, it's not mine. So when I'm talking to my daughter and she's worried about this other girl in her office, for example, or she's worried about, and I'm like, but honey, is that yours? Is that yours? Well, no, then it's not yours to worry about. But this is our third conversation about this girl. Right? Why are we wasting time on someone it's not ours to worry about? She's got her own path. She's got her own things to worry about. And therefore, that's what she should be worried about. Not my daughter should be worried about her own life and her own stuff, you know? So it's a really quick way for me to remind myself, is this mine or is that someone else's? Because if it's mine, I'm dealing with it. If it's theirs, I'm going to watch. And if they need help, I'll help them. But I'm not going to throw in with it, because if it's not mine directly, it's not mine.
This is all so very, very rich. And first of all, I will have to say, just, probably legally, if people need to go to their doctors and go to their psychiatrist, go and do that.
100%.
And 100%. That said, the point being, know thyself. This is that we don't have to say that they are the masters and gurus. They're very professional, can help. They can be part of a great team.
Absolutely.
However, in the end, it comes down to maybe you don't have the right doctor does not have your best interest. So we get that powerful choice to discern and create a good team. But what the other thing that you were just talking about, I'll talk about it as lanes. And we have this habit of hopping into everybody else's lane. And I think maybe we've all just learned to do that. And even within conversations or you're with people, how you doing, it just can become so easy to hop into everybody else's lane. And maybe with the social media world, it becomes even broader to hop into so many lanes. But I appreciate what you were just saying. Is this mine? And for those of us who are probably empathic, is this energy even mine? What belongs to me versus what am I picking up? And then conversationally, is somebody else's relationship anything to do with you? Me, the proverbial you, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I do find that we have adapted to, gossip or discussing other people's lives as if we're trying to solve problems for them, but they're not in the conversation. Right. And so it's kind of like at some point, you just start disengaging from that kind of conversation. And so when people start to try to gossip with me, I'm like, I'm like, it's non-committal, I'm not encouraging, and I'm not trying to be a part of it, because it really just becomes drama. And when other people are talking about someone else's life, then what business do we have doing that in the first place? But then when we're trying to, discuss who said what, who's better, who's wrong, who's at fault, it's not in your most peaceful, best interest to keep pursuing that kind of discussion. And so that's the other thing that many of us in the spiritual or priestess world find is we have lost many people from our lives. And it's it's either survival or it's beneficial, or it just makes life easier when we don't have people that want to run us down, or when we start kind of excising out of our lives the people that believe that we were different than we are. Like if someone is upset because I'm spiritual, or they think that the woo is stupid, well, they don't need to be in my life. I'm okay with that.
Right.
or that's just not an area we ever will discuss. I have friendships that for years that they didn't even know I did psychic work because I knew that they were not the people that would accept it. And I didn't want to become the butt of their jokes. Like, I guess you know what I'm thinking about. I don't want to go there. Right. Like, I bet you knew that, didn't you? And it's like, ugh. So it's not to engage in that kind of stuff. And really things that bring me peace are what I want to do more of. But gossip does not bring me peace.
Is not it.
There's
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's just there's no peace in that. It's an activity, and you may enjoy it because, frankly, talking shit is kind of fun, and we get a little juice out of it. But in the end, is that really how you want to be?
Right. I will say, I won't even call it a guilty pleasure, but I will have to say the wisdom and whatever je ne sais quoi of Jon Stewart these days, because I think that he has this master's observation of the absurd, right? And I realize that gets into, and I don't listen all the time, but it's just sometimes you just can just have that comedic zing to look at something from this weird perspective, and then I don't live there. But anyway, sometimes that sort of stuff is a little bit fun when it can tap into, look at the circus. Just look at the circus. It's kind of silly.
100%.
And then what can we do? Blah, 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 blah. So that's a whole different thing. But in some ways it goes to what you're talking about. That's that observer mode. And where something can be fun within, all the world's a stage type of a thing.
Oh, and I laugh at, I have a great, happy sense of humor, right? And I do find that people like Jon Stewart, they're like a pressure valve because we all have pressure of the craziness that we're like, if the world right now is a soup, right?
Yeah.
We're all bits and flavors to the soup. But right now we start to realize that the broth that we're in is actually kind of toxic to all of us. And now we're like, well, wait a sec, we're in this soup that's toxic. This is not funny at all. But when we start laughing at the absurdity of it all, right? Then it's like, oh yeah, because really, am I going to go march on Washington and demand that we clean up our medical system and our water and our food systems? They're not going to listen to me. But there's a time for that. It's just not the time right now. But I do feel like things like that are pressure releasers.
They are. Well, laughter and something that's joyous, of course. Yeah. Of course. So I want to sort of cycle right in because I think that you are, as a master channel, priestess, oracle, what have been some messages? And I have been feeling them as well. And both of us, you said the words first a few minutes ago, but we were both literally landing at the same, what doesn't bring peace? Yeah. So I think this has been the big message from beyond is this too shall pass, right? They know that this is a wild time, never seen on this planet, energetically, Schumann resonance, all of it. But help us through your gift. What is it that you're finding? And you were talking, your store is called Goddess I Am. But before we spoke, you said that you've been kind of shifting into the more priestess formula instead of the goddess, which I know it's all the same. So help us through those types of messaging and where you're coming from in your work right now.
Okay, so when we look at the goddess to me, and there's pantheons of goddesses, right? Right. Greco, you've got your Egyptian and your Celtic. So you've got lots of goddesses, and they've all been, for the most part, these archetypes of empowerment, right? Because when we look at the stories of the goddesses, they were playing with the big gods, right? Big goddesses, big gods. They were playing, and they were not all playing nice. If we look at the story of Zeus, I mean, he was not such a nice, happy-go-lucky kind of guy. And his long-suffering wife, Hera. So we've got lots of goddesses that had to really be tough women because they had to stand toe-to-toe with men who were really just being assholes, for lack of a better term, right? So For me, goddess represents empowerment. It represents your personal power. It represents that you are not a doormat ready to just take whatever life brings you, that you're going to go out there and you're going to find the life that really sets you free, right? Yeah. Makes you happy, makes you feel like I am so alive and I'm right where I'm supposed to be. So that's what the goddess represents. And then you can pull individual goddesses out if you want to be empowered. Let's work with Isis. You can call her in. You can work with the energy of Isis. She's very prolific on this planet. Many women feel very aligned to her. She's very powerful. And she's also alchemical. So she's very much into transmitting or transmuting. Thank you. I'm like transmography. That's not the right word. Transmuting. But really adept at transmuting things from one thing into another. And that's really what so much of the healing work is, right? So when you're working with the goddesses, you're working on healing. That's just part of it, right?
Right.
And so this is what I love about goddesses, because there are angry goddesses, there are vengeful goddesses. And sometimes as women, we'd love to be so put together that our divine masculine and our divine feminine are equally neutral, right? They're equally in us. And I'm not operating just from my masculine or just from my feminine. But there's times when, of course, my masculine needs to take the front and center. Like if I'm working with a contract and they're trying to limit me, I might be like, no, I'm not going to go. I'm not signing that until you change this. I'm going to do this. Sometimes my masculine needs to take the stage and really lead the way. And my feminine stands back and watches and goes, yeah, that's where we need to be.
Right.
There are many of us on this planet as women who pretty much live in our masculine. And that's because this is not necessarily a place where we feel safe. And when you don't feel safe, you want the leave me alone. You want that tough girl kind of, leave me alone. Don't bother me. You want to be able to tell people F off if they're,
right.
making you feel so uncomfortable that, is this going to be a problem? But ideally, we want to be in a balanced state within ourselves, in that hieros gamos, which is the divine marriage of the masculine and the feminine working together as needed. But it's like nobody's in charge, right? Because they're both in charge, but not in a way that's like, I'm the guy, I got to be in charge. It's really just this joyful, whoever needs to show up in that moment to get the work done is who's going to be there. When I do my work, primarily I'm in my feminine.
Right.
But there are times when people aren't listening, I kind of have to be tough with them a little. And then, tough side of me comes out a little. Sometimes I have to point out when people are just being completely in their limitations and their lack and they're minimizing themselves. And I'm tough about that because it's like, why are you doing this? And they're like, what do you mean I'm doing something? I'm like, this. And once I show them what they're doing, they're like, I am doing that. So this is all part of the goddess and priestess world. This is the recognition of when you're in your masculine, when you're in your feminine, when you're being neutral, which is really the ideal, the 0 point, that zeal point, neutral space where it's neither black nor white. It just is. Mm-hmm. Things just are. They exist. Mm-hmm. I don't have to label everything. And that's another point when you're asking, what is it like to be the oracle and that? These are all just limiting terms to the greatness of what we are.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just a little point of what I am, what you are, how we are. Did that answer that question for you?
It certainly did. It's beautiful. And of course, with the titles, they can feel limiting. So they can represent us, but we know there's so much exponentially more. Yeah. And I love how your hands are going and doing a thing, because that's the flow and fluidity of life. And what aspect of ourselves really rightfully should be showing up, and who's in support, either aspects of ourselves or again in relationship, because the male, female, divine, feminine, masculine is within man and women.
100%.
And this is part of what's happening also. So the women are remembering their power, and the men are remembering their gentle side.
Mm-hmm.
So this is it can be wild, and it can be frictionary, because it hasn't happened necessarily in these centuries. I think the younger generation, the guys know, and the younger parents, they're in this kismet, they're in that flow, and it's really not a big deal. These conversations don't even need to happen in their households. That's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah.
It's already done and dusted. Within that right now, especially those of us of a certain age who have grown up in certain churchings, have grown up in our family structures. It was going to come out as destruction to structures. So because it is a dismantling of so many of these structures of, it really can be so simple. It really can be that simple to get into that peaceful space. Maybe that gets into the whole Magdalenes. Talk to us about the Magdalenes. Mary Magdalene.
Magdalene.
Yeah. And again, people have a lot of book learning of what they think of her and so many of these stories. So we don't have to rabbit hole too much, but please bring forward this light.
So for people that are scholarly, I would suggest a book called Mary Magdalene Revealed. It was written by Megan Watterson, and she is a religious scholar. And she was going to religious school, or she was going there, and she basically said to her professor, where am I? Where am I? I'm half the population, but where am I in this book?
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And so that began her search into, well, what and where and how did Mary Magdalene, where did all the women get kind of pushed to the side and then minimized?
Right.
So for those of us who converse with her, she's loving and she's tough. She's funny and she's aware. So there's a story that when she and Yeshua, which is the way many of us think of Jesus now, because he was Aramaic. I don't think the j sound was even part of that language. It was much more of a Yeshua, was the way his name was pronounced. So many of us have just called him Yeshua at this point. So when she and Yeshua would come to a town with their group and they would set up for healing people, they would sit side by side and the lines would go out from there. And when Yeshua would notice that the men were lining up in front of him and no one was lining up in front of her, he would give a little speech explaining that he has a healer when he has troubles. Mm-hmm. And the person that he goes to, which is the best healer that he knows, is sitting right here next to him, AKA his beautiful wife, Mary Magdalene. And then you would see a shift of people, not all, but some people would shift into her line because they could trust this man that they'd all been hearing about, you know, on the desert, through the desert drums, I guess, crossing so many borders in the work that they did. And so she was as adept as a healer. She was also a high priestess. She was trained in, just as Yeshua was, in the order of Melchizedek in Egypt. So there's a lot more information about the travels that a lot of these ancient people did to other countries to learn. Like there's stories about Yeshua disappearing for years, and he was in Nepal and Tibet and India, and he even went up to Great Britain and France. And I mean, this has been written about by various people, channelers, some of them finding different documents in different places around the world where they're mentioned. So it's coming more to light that she was much more than she's been given room to be, right? She's been kind of given the room to be the wife of Jesus, or I'm sorry, an apostle of Jesus, when in fact, what we're finding is she was not only an apostle, but she was kind of the lead apostle, that she was the one who was to begin after his death as the next iteration of his way of love. And then there was infighting because, some guys didn't like it, blah, blah, blah. But the energy of Mary Magdalene is that of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, go inside, look and see who you are truly. Who do you resonate as? And let's play there. And she will come and she will not so gently kick your butt if that's what you kind of need. If you're wallowing, if you're just like, woe is me, she'll say, is that really how you want to be?
Right.
Is that really serving you in some way? And when you ask yourself, you go, oh no, this isn't serving me at all. I'm just being whiny right now because part of me is just feeling wounded. And so then you work on yourself a little and that goes away. But Mary Magdalene is such a force. There's a story of her coming to, oh my goodness, my memory is suddenly leaving me. It's not the Templars. Anyway, there's a beautiful story of Mary Magdalene that when this one group was living high up above the desert floor, and it might have been Masada, they were plagued by the Romans who had come and encamped below them and were basically waiting them out because the Romans didn't like that these people were autonomous. So they were waiting them out. They weren't trying to kill them all the time, but if they could, they would have. So these people at some point got this message as a group from Mary Magdalene, and she says, when they knew that they had nothing left, they'd run out of water, they'd run out of food, and they knew that to give themselves up to the Romans would have been torture and death, and it would have been ugly. And so as autonomous, sovereign people, they decided that they were going to step into the fire that they built for themselves, and they were going to leave no one left for the Romans to do anything with. Mm-hmm. So Mary Magdalene came to them as a group and says, the next time we come back, we do not come as the one. We come as the many. And that is a prophecy that is now being played out because she has come and whispered in the ears and into the hearts of so many women. And there's handfuls of men too, mm-hmm. to say, hey, would you like to play? Would you like to listen? Would you like to be more than you think you are? And so she is such a force even now. If we think about what she and Yeshua did 2,000 years ago, that they implanted into this earth so much love, so much of their vibrancy, that it still resonates in such a powerful way all these years later. We're still thinking of them. We're still offering, prayers to them. We're still connecting with them. And I think if you are called, find someone who can help you go down that path. There's another wonderful book called Anna, the Grandmother of Jesus. This was channeled by a woman who I believe her name is Claire Birdsong. And it's a crazy story if you want to apply our regular now human ideals to it, but it shows you how well trained they were in the psychic arts. Their body could be here, but they could bilocate to say, oh, I don't know, where Yeshua was camping out in Nepal. I'm going to bilocate and I'm going to have a conversation with him. They could do that because they knew how. They could do healing that we have no concept of. They could extend the body from about 80 years, 90 years to hundreds of years because they knew what oils and what energies and what things to apply to keep the body sweet while it was in repose in the rites of the sepulcher. So there's so much to unpack about Mary Magdalene. But just know that she's here as a mentor, as a teacher, as a helper, as a guide, as a friend. And she's all of that to anyone that follows the Rose Priestess path. And I'm delighted to be part of that because she helped bring me back to my feminine, because I was in a marriage where I had to be in my masculine all the time. And so she reminds me on a daily, how do I get to be a girl? How do I get to be in my mysterious feminine way? And I don't have to go out there leading all boss lady and rah. I can manifest differently now. I can engage differently, and I feel more empowered than I ever have.
That's beautiful.
It's all just rising because of what feels like the mentoring that she offers. Right. Like if she could do what she did, I can do what I can. I can do my life in this without my husband being crucified, without losing everything as a young woman, right?
Right.
So she's very inspirational to so many of us.
It's just so beautiful. And these are some very rich historical things to go through, to read, to explore. The word spelunking's coming back up again, which is going to lead to your work in Egypt. We use the word spelunking with Morgan, getting into the deep dive of the caves and stuff. So the other thing I was going to say is it also sounds very Saint Germain. Saint Germain can be like this. What for? It's very beautiful, but there's like a holy weight that it can be very powerful. They'll bop on the
Trust
head.
Me, they're not all love and light.
They're
not love and light brigade, right? They're not. They're here. You're like, come
they're
on.
here to whoop ass. Yeah,
we need you. They will. And that's beautiful because we need that sometimes.
We do. So listen, but getting into the spelunking, you have, and the universe has shifted the timeline that you were going to have a sojourn to Egypt, because that's been another calling as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to mention on this episode, on this show right now, the other work. So even before Yeshua and Magdalene's, there's so much information within caves, within these portal spaces called the pyramids all over the world. And tell us a little bit from your experience, because you've had some magic, and I know a lot of magic happens down from within these caves, from these ancestral lines of ours.
It's true. It's very true. So what I've recently learned about the pyramids is that, when they first were trying to figure out what are these structures for? What are these about, right? They walk around them. So what I've come to learn is that the pyramids were schools. So there were different levels and layers that you would get to as you evolved, with the idea of going to the top of the pyramid. And at the top of the pyramid, it's like you are now connecting, you and God, or you and the universe, you and whatever you call the higher power, you and he or she are now connecting. Because as you go through, it's kind of like, think about if you're going in a zigzag pattern up through a pyramid, that every level is another layer of mastery for you. Okay. So let's say you master some of your emotions. Maybe that allows you to move to the next layer in the pyramid. And so then that's where you learn a whole new set of interesting ideas or gifts or skills or whatever. And when you master that, you get to go to the next level. So the beauty of the pyramids is that energy is retained. So when you go to the pyramids, it's a little disconcerting, because you're looking at the world around you. Like if you climb up on the pyramid, which you're allowed to, you look down, you're seeing people from Asia, people from South America, people from Russia, you're seeing Egyptians, you're seeing people from, the whole world is there checking these places out. And that's the power of the pyramids, right? That it's so monolithic, so impressive that people from around the world want to come. So when you go there, if you can get really quiet, and we went into the pyramids and we did a little meditation inside, and one place you kind of claim a little space because there's not much of it. But we sat down and it was warm. Going down underneath, you think it's going to get cooler, but it doesn't. It doesn't. It's just hot. No matter how you slice it, it's warm. but we did meditations in there, and then we went down into the middle of the pyramid. And we just you're communing with this energy that is, releasing things that maybe you've never even tapped into, that you didn't even know was an issue, but it's been dragging for years and lifetimes with you. I went there. I found that I had, I'll stand up a little, right here, I had what looked like a golden breastplate. And one of the other healers in my group said it looked more like a bustier, like it wrapped around my breasts and went under them. And it was protecting that whole kind of central heart chakra area. And we figured out that I'd put it there myself, and to protect from being hurt with love. And so that got released while I was in Egypt. So of all the years and years, and I've been at this for, 30 plus years, all the years that I've done work on me, never found that, never knew that existed, never got there, which is why I love taking people on tours to Egypt, because we can go to places. It's like Egypt is ground zero for some of our healing. Like the deepest levels of healing were what I got to when I was in Egypt. So I love going to Egypt for that, because I've done lots of work, and I've had lots of healers do work on me, and nobody ever found that I was blocking love ever. And
I think this is,
I met the man that I ended up marrying.
there you go. There, and see, it works in mysterious ways. We don't know until we can step out of our comfort zone. And sometimes it does take travel, whether it's down the block or down the street or across the world. And I also know, so you're right, the great gods of Egypt. And then we have the Bosnian pyramids. And then we have all the different spaces in the Yucatan Peninsula and all over the world.
Yeah.
So if people get this, I think I want to go over here, there's a reason why you are viscerally being called to these spaces in ways that it's great. I have fun when I can consciously go, oh, look at this piece of this ancient of days of me. That makes now sense to me. We can make sense to ourselves in ways that we never thought possible, and in ways that you were talking about. Heck, you helped me tremendously last time we were visiting together in Tennessee. I was having this digestion stuff, and you tapped in, and it was one aspect of it was so deep down from thousands of years ago. And you went, nope, nope, nope. Oh, the notion of poison. I don't need to have that anymore. That just didn't need to be part of my system anymore. Nope. So this is where your work is phenomenal. What we as healers or channel or whatever, my hands are getting all glowy, so we're all in this together, right? Yous are too. All right, good. Yeah. So we can offer that, a little of that to everybody right now, is to understand this is our own remembering, re-remembering, and reawakening from our own God, goddess selves, our Egyptian times, our Bosnian times, our whatever, Vermont. There are spaces everywhere, Sedona. It goes on, because there's so much vast information that we have carried from the Earth planet, all the cosmos, and back and forwards again. So,
that's right.
It's so true.
And people get a little bit caught up in where they're born in this life.
Right.
So for me, I resonate mostly with Native American beliefs. I love the earth. I love their thoughts about the earth. And you never take every bit of a plant. You always leave enough of the plant to survive into the next flowering, the next growing and stuff. So I just want to put that out there, that if you were born American doesn't mean that you have to, that all of your past lives have always been American. We've lived around this globe. Every time we've probably chosen different places. So pay attention to the places that you personally are like super drawn to. Like, oh, I love the idea of Bali, or I love the idea of Egypt, but Like for me, you could give me a house in China. I have absolutely no interest in going to China. Nothing against the China.
It's just not in your wheelhouse.
I
Right.
think my lifetime there was probably not a happy one. So my internal memory of China doesn't bring me, ooh, yes. It brings me, oh, maybe not. So
or yet, maybe not yet. We'll see.
Yeah. But
right.
People kind of sometimes get caught up in, well, I'm not Native American, so I can't really study theirs. I'm not Asian, so I can't be Buddhist. And it's like, we have to let go of these ideas and just really let your heart pull you in the direction that really is meant to serve you. So like when you say Bosnian pyramids, if that's where you're drawn to see pyramids, but not Egypt, then by all means, go to Bosnia, because there's something more for you there than what you would find in Egypt. And I just think, we have these attractions that we don't really know, like we don't explore them, but we just know we're attracted to things. But I'm curious kitty, so I'm always trying to explore, like, why am I attracted to this? What is this about? Yeah. And that's what I've learned is happy lives in certain places make you want to go back.
Right.
Tough lives in certain places make you say, maybe not, maybe next time. So,
curious kitty. Oh, that's hilarious. I love that. I'm curious. I was a curious kitty too. Yeah. So Beth, listen, we could go through many lifetimes talking, but I want to hear about your shop and the other offerings that you bring to the world.
Well, 10 years ago, I was in a class and Spirit whispered loudly in my ear, it's time to open your shop. And I'm like, what shop? I had no intentions of opening a shop. And yet here I am 10 years later owning a shop. So in Naples, Florida, we have 2,400 square feet of, we have crystals. We have all of the tools that you might need for your spiritual journey, pendulums and card decks, if you like oracle or tarot. And truly, they're not inherently evil. So if anyone's ever taught you that, just let it go.
Let it go.
It's an old lie that's been told. It's just unfortunately been repeated and repeated and repeated, and we're just ready to let it go. But we have jewelry. We have all kinds of fun stuff. People get lost in the store. They love coming and just meandering because we have a lot of different things. And so primarily it's a crystal shop, but it's a metaphysical store. I think of it as a conscious living shop. We also have a temple, and this is where we do our teaching. This is where we do classes. This is where we do meditations. And my 9-month Priestess course, which we began about 6 weeks ago, is what we do in there. So the energy is really beautiful in our temple. People come in when they're having a bad day and they just go back there and sit. They're like, can I go sit in the temple? It's like, yeah, go for it. And they go sit and they just come out like, the energy, it just feels so good. So we do lots of things. We do them live. We do them Zoom. Light codes are often done live and on Zoom with energy. Distance is not a big deal. If you're curious about what we do, it's goddessiam.com. And you can find out all about all the things that we do. Maybe come play with us, my friend. In November 16th, we're going to be doing it's like a big spirit fest is what we call it. And we've done this like 7 years, and it's at the Unity Church here. It's a beautiful campus, and we'll have lots of readers and healers and vendors, and you can come play. And then we're also doing lots of classes. So come and play and teach if you want. Come.
Thank you. Unless I'm going to be off in Europe. So I've been getting this bizarro calling. So take the show on the road on an airplane. That needs to play through. So that said, people, if you're in Florida or if you want to travel and you're getting called, because I think, Florida has its own beautiful portals and places too.
Oh, yeah.
Just saying. That go play at Goddess I Am in Naples. And you also do workshops. You have things online and people can find your stones, and your toy shop is available online is what I'll say. Like the toy box, the treasure box.
My treasure box. Yes.
Your treasure box. And as we know, crystals, they are sentient. So they have a life of their own. And so all of them, when they're real, they're the real deal. Because, some places they don't resonate because God knows what they even are. But if you have a calling in one, it's life and you've made that connection,
Right.
That's so beautiful for
So the beauty
people too.
of crystals, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah,
The,
no, that's fine.
the beauty of crystals, let me just grab one. I'm surrounded by them. So the beauty of crystals is this little crystal has a vibration that will never change.
Right.
It's steady. So their energy is like this all day long. We wake up, we're like, woohoo, I had a great night's sleep. I slept all the way through. Then you get a call, you got to go into work early. You're like, oh man, I wanted to do different things with my day. So we're up and down emotionally all day long. But when you work with crystals, your highs and lows kind of even out. You're still like this, but it's not so, oh my gosh, the emotions are so. We've got a crystal for that. We're going to give you a lepidolite if you're one of these crazy, not crazy in a bad way, but crazy like my emotions are crazy. Or
Out of whack. Yeah, a little, yeah.
So we give them these support crystals. And so when we have them in our home, they're just holding this steady vibration. So yeah, crystals are a wonderful tool for people to be utilizing in ways that they probably don't realize. If you put selenite under your bed or between your mattresses, you will find that it releases negativity throughout the night.
Right.
If you have a husband that's a grumpy Gus, put it under his bed without telling him that you've done this, and he'll be happier and why. You'll just be like, has done the trick again.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh, Beth, this is so fun. And that your shop again is the Goddess I Am in Naples, and it is a treasure box and it's a toy box, and you are a treasure. Do you have any one last nugget, any more crystal that needs to come through before we put the cherry on top of this beautiful pyramid that we've created here?
Well, I think at this point, because so many of us are dealing with 5G and we're worried about Schumann resonance and we're worried about energy, think about a stone called shungite. Now, shungite is a black stone. It comes from Russia. There's noble, and then there's regular. I've pretty much only used regular. It's cheaper. People say it's not as powerful. I've had no problems with it, but you can get little discs that have a little sticky on one side and you can put it on your phone because so many of us
for EMF sensitivity. Yeah,
exactly. Right. We also have carvings of it, but it's really, what I also love about it is you can get a disc and put it into your water filter, and it kills virus and bacteria in the water you drink. So into my Brita, I have shungite. So consider that. If you don't have any shungite, it's definitely a good one to have in your toolbox.
Yeah. And there are frequencies. I have a recording that is, I played that just the other day, because sometimes we don't know what we're picking up and what might be in the ethers with radiation zaps or whatever it is, and just it can help. All these different things, all these tools in the toolbox, and for some, putting it in the water might be great, and others it'll be something else. And Beth Brown-Rinella, my goodness, wow. This is a powerful show. It's going to be placed perfectly. You're number 99. So thank you for being my 99. 100, we're going to celebrate 100 voices. But this has been a joy, and I really appreciate your time with us.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I just think you're just so wonderful. And I love how you have this kind of calm way about you that it's very inviting. So I hope this gets a lot of folks watching, and that your success continues, and go for it. Just keep going.
Thank you. Woohoo! Thanks so much. And thanks so much for listening, everybody. Please be sure to like, follow, review, and share this show. And there is a PayPal donation button to help me get this show on the road further and further and further to get this message out. So, and it's always about love. This is Lasting Conversations. We get to the heart of everything.